Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? See my screen? Yes.
Looks good.
Great. Okay, cool. Just a moment. So my presentation will be on, as the title says here, Native-speakerism and its effects on Japanese university students. So let's get started. So quick agenda, a quick self-introduction, then an introduction to the study, some of the literature review, the main points. I'll quickly go through the methods, and then hopefully most of the time for the findings, the discussion, and hopefully some interesting conclusions. So about me. Yeah, my name is Thomas Entwistle from the UK. I work for the British Council at Nagoya University of Foreign Studies. So I'm kind of full-time, part-time. It's kind of a unique situation, but yes. Been teaching for over 13 years, just over 6 years at NUFS. And I'm interested in phonology, pronunciation, study abroad preparation, fostering autonomous learning, and the effects of native speakerism. So, the introduction to the study. First, let's define what it is. What is native speakerism? So it's a pervasive ideology which portrays quote unquote native English speaking teachers from inner circle countries, UK, USA, Canada, etc., as the true representation of English language teaching. This is not just in Japan, this is all the way throughout ELT. Which has lots of negative effects on hiring practices, materials design, in classroom instruction. And this is my opinion, it's pretty anti-EDI, it's not inclusive, doesn't encourage diversity amongst teaching staff, etc. So learners, students see native speakers as the only thing they should aspire to, as the true model of what is correct English. And it creates a kind of us, the students, versus them, the native speakers mentality. And it's kind of a strange thing that this exists, considering that the vast majority of English language teachers around the world are in fact non-native English speakers, which is true for Japan as it is everywhere else. And that's from Shibata, not Naoya Shibata, but a different Shibata. So it was with that sort of background to the topic, which I started to have a look at what are the, how does it play out in Japan? So I looked into that. And as you may or may not be aware, Japan is a hierarchical society where deference is paid to teachers and also senior peers, the whole senpai kohai culture. In the classroom, in Japanese classrooms, there's often much more importance placed on being correct rather than intelligible. And since the early 2000s, there have been governmental pushes to globalize pre-tertiary and tertiary English classrooms all across Asia, in fact, and Japan is a little behind its Asian counterparts. And just before these governmental pushes, Kubota argued that ELT in Japan creates a cultural and linguistic stereotypes of English, again, the us versus them mentality. And these stereotypes manifest themselves in learners' feelings towards so-called standard and non-standard English, i.e. that standard inner circle English is correct. And then more recently, Nonaka showed that Japanese students often feel a sense of shock when they are eventually confronted with fluent, authentic English in the real world when they study abroad, meet international students, enter the workforce. And that mirrored earlier studies by field with other students, not Japanese students. So, and there was a pressure to speak English perfectly, i.e. like a native speaker, and that was widely held amongst Japanese participants in Nonaka's study. Rivers and Takahashi found that learners in high schools in Japan placed the native speaker as the ideal model of English in the materials. So I kind of thought that our university students, they are at a stage where they've had these three main influences impacting upon their education. So Japanese sort of cultural societal norms, the hierarchical society, kohai, senpai culture, native-speakerism within their pre-tertiary education, and then obviously the governmental initiatives to globalize. So I thought it'd be interesting to see, has that had an impact? So the main question, I guess, is what I wanted to find out was how have these three external areas influenced university students? So considering that main question, the purpose of the study was to uncover what Japanese university age students perceive a native speaker to be, to ascertain if they feel the need to sound native when they speak English, and to uncover participants' deeper perceptions of past experiences in English learning, particularly around the area of speaking and pronunciation. Okay. So just quickly go through the methodology, the methods. I recruited 49 participants, 5 were rejected for various reasons. They were all in the first 3 grades at university, so 18 to 21. They were all above B1 level, which I will explain in a moment. They'd all gone through the Japanese university, the Japanese junior high school, pre-tertiary education. It was conducted at NUFS around late 2021 to early 2022. And the data collection instrument was a questionnaire. So the questionnaire was non-experimental, so qualitative, and it was written responses. So students were asked to provide a paragraph or sentences on the questions, hence the need for B1 and above requirements. And the two questions they were asked, number 1, what does native speaker mean to you? And then number 2, how important is it to sound like a native speaker of English? And then they were offered a few prompts so they could talk about their past education, their past teachers, their current education, study abroad, or anything they like. So questionnaire was sent out, and then with the data that I got back, thematic analysis was conducted by hand based off Braun and Clark's model, which I can explain deeper later if anyone wants to ask. So let's have a look. So the first question, which is at the top there, what does native speaker mean to you? So these themes are in order of how common they were. So the first main theme was that a native speaker is from an inner circle country, so UK, America, and English is their language. That's a native speaker. Theme 2 was related to the person's country of origin, not necessarily English, so any country of origin. Other sub-themes were mother tongue, father tongue, country they were raised in. Theme 3 was more about language ability. So can they speak fluently, speak without issues? Do they use it every day? Theme 4, their opinions of what a native speaker is came from outside influences from either high school, junior high school, from their university, or from their teachers and friends. And then theme 5, which was brought up some really interesting perceptions, was maybe more of a global and nuanced perspectives held by students, which might be interesting, which we can look at. So they mentioned globalization, having foreign friends, and being hafu, which I know it's a term people don't like, but that's what came up. So let's have a look at some quotes from students which exemplify these themes. So participant 13 said, the people whose first language is English especially come from USA, UK, or Australia. Theme 2, participant 36. It means a person who can speak the language and understand culture due to being born there. Theme 3, language ability. Participant 40 said, a person who can speak fluently can spend daily life without any problems. Participant 3 mentioned that native speaker is from an English country, and I heard this at junior high school. So this is something they'd been taught, or at least heard it mentioned. And then the sort of the rising global or nuanced perspectives, which may be more interesting. Participant 1, in my opinion, there are no native speakers. It doesn't matter who the native speakers are, because nowadays globalization is progressing. Interesting, that's participant 1. Maybe they were very eager to get their opinions in the survey. Participant 7, I know some people are native speakers. Interesting, they used quotation marks, of more than one language, like so-called half and first generation American-born Japanese. And participant 6, my image comes from my friends who come from Thailand. They speak Japanese in their daily life, but they speak Thai with their family or siblings. So I thought these were interesting. I know maybe in the past, maybe mistakenly myself, I've thought, oh, students, they only are fixated on American English or British English, but this shows that that's not always the case, and there are some more nuanced perspectives out there. Question 2. So the question at the top, how important is it to sound like a native speaker of English? So participant 20, just go back. Yeah, the 4 main themes. So the first main theme was it's all about understanding and communication. And this was by far the largest theme: speaking skills, mutual understanding, communication. Theme 2, again, showed more nuanced perspectives, the second main theme. Theme 3, again, native speakerism, the influences of it crept in, influence of teachers and about social embarrassment. And the 4th largest theme was they didn't know. They couldn't explain why they thought the way they did. So I won't give any examples of theme 4 because it's just people saying, I don't know. So theme 1, understanding and communication. Participant 20, I chose strongly agree because it is very important for the communication with native speakers. Participant 8, when I was junior high school student, ALT or English teacher, correct right pronunciation. So I felt we had to imitate like a native speaker. And then, yeah, these more nuanced perspectives and perceptions of native speakers. Oops. Participant 38. When I studied abroad in the past, people from various countries spoke English with their own unique accents. Yeah, maybe not what the accents they've been learning in school. These were more local accents. Participant 1 again, very eager. I have been hearing a lot of different pronunciations on the internet, and I have come to believe that pronunciation doesn't matter. It's interesting. And participant 4. It's not bad to speak English like a native speaker, but you don't have to too much care about that. Again, showing that for this student, participant 4, the native speaker is not the ideal model. They don't think it matters. It doesn't matter. So what is the discussion of this data and these findings? Well, the participants overwhelmingly still think native speakers come from inner circle countries, echoing many previous studies, some of them here. There is still an us versus them mentality that persists. There is a seemingly and sizable influence during pre-tertiary education that sounding native is the correct and ideal model. However, there is a rise in more global, nuanced opinions and ideas of what a native speaker is and the importance of sounding quote unquote native. So just a few limitations. Of course, no study is without them. So here are the ones I think. Responses in Japanese would have maybe provided richer data, but I don't have the language capability to translate them accurately. So that was not possible. Participants were all from the same department in NUFs. So how would results have differed if they had been open to the other departments or even other universities or other institutions? And unfortunately, due to time, and this was during coronavirus, so focus groups and interviews would have been somewhat difficult. So there was no triangulation of data, just written responses were collected. And as mentioned in the literature review, there have been a big push to globalize English education in Japan. So these rise in nuanced perspectives is the change in these attitudes to more global perspectives the result of government pushes coming through, or is it that the study was done in a foreign language oriented context, with some respondents having already spent time abroad or possibly of dual heritage, or that we are just generally living in a much more globalized and global sort of outlooking world these days? So what implications for the university context? So what can we do to tackle or address or look into native speakerism, which still is around, is still pervasive? So I believe that exposing students to more world Englishes to tackle the still pervasive ideology of native speakerism is needed. And to help better prepare students for future study abroad, future education and careers, by greater exposure to world Englishes. So not just native, quote unquote, native English, but non-standard accents, Canadian accents, French Canadian accents, Indian English, and even using Japanese English speakers as the model in the classroom, things like that. Exploit changing attitudes by leaning in as the teacher and further raising awareness. And provide students with further awareness raising material for self-study. And as Japan is a monolingual context, there's less chance for English exposure outside of the class. So one thing we could do is provide them with self-study material. I think there could be some interesting further research we could do to conduct the same research, but in other contexts, like a national university or a seimongakko, a technical college. Undertake the same research, but with more triangulation of data. So, and ideally with lower level students being offered the chance to participate, but in Japanese in their L1. And this could be a longitudinal study to see if these perceptions and feelings continue to change, particularly the more global outlooks. Is that going to continue to change, or will it change at all? One thing we can all do is more sort of classroom action research of integrating world Englishes and seeing if we can change our students' perceptions and attitudes. So, a few minutes, okay. Final thoughts. So this study shows that there are growing nuanced and global perceptions held by Japanese university-age students, at least at NUFs, on what constitutes a native speaker and how important it is to sound native. And while there does seem to be some progress, as the data indicates, there is still much more that needs to be done to tackle the widespread ideology of native speakerism, if we think it's a problem, which I do. One thing I thought we could do very quickly, or maybe do after my time is up, is share ideas. Maybe not today, but throughout the next semester. I just created a Padlet link where we can share ideas of tackling native speakerism. And just one thing I've been doing myself is providing students with listening activities to more non-standard types of English. So Scouse, which is Liverpudlian English, or Irish English, and there's an Australian English one there as well. In the future, I'm hoping to add Indian English or Japanese English, more world Englishes, to help students who are going to study abroad, but also to raise awareness. So let me share those links with you. And this is something we can all do. And I'd be very interested to hear if anybody does any sort of classroom action research and anything that is, we can share our best practices. So hopefully that's in the chat. Please type okay if it worked, if you can see it in the chat. Okay, thank you, Nick. Great, perfect. Okay, and here are the references, which are all there. So I'm going to just quickly stop sharing my screen. We've got 2 minutes, I think, 2 minutes. So if anyone does have a